A very good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kiran and Sheena and Sel and Lisa for taking on the more sobering themes of today's seminar. I will be talking about the next new normal, some skill sets and rethinking income streams going forward. Now, just get my slides to, yes. You've heard this before from all the speakers. We're in this together. It doesn't mean that we're all in the same boat, but we are certainly in this together, and we need to look at it from each other's perspectives in order to avoid skirmishes and to actually think outside the box. Now, the reality is we are all worried. To put it in context, I'm 25 years in practice, and this is my third recession. It is, as Sheena put it, promising to be one of the more scary recessions. And so we are all in that spot where we are trying to think how we're going to perhaps have to reinvent ourselves and to keep our resilience going. And in order to do that, we need to know what we can do. The first thing is to unlock our respective gifts. Everyone listening today has got gifts. If you've already discovered them, that's great. If you have not, sit and think about what your gifts are that you can bring to the workplace and maintain your relevance in whatever industry that you're going to be in. Now, going forward, it's going to be important to be able to marshal your opportunities. It sometimes seems a little bit overwhelming that in a situation post-COVID, where people are talking about retrenchments and possible job cuts, that people are looking positively about opportunities. But seeing it from our perspectives of having gone through various crises before, in all crises, there are opportunities. In order to be able to take advantage of it, it involves being in the right place and at the right time. But far more important than that, it is having the right frame of mind. So how do we do that? Before I talk about how we're going to do that, let me first preempt and say it is going to be hard. You are going to be worried. You are going to feel uncomfortable and perhaps sometimes even overwhelmed. And that's okay. For others, you may have had time to reflect over these last 6 weeks and now realize that it was this time that was meant for you to make your move. You may feel like a fish out of water. You may feel like a fish out of water, but in reflection, you realize you're like a salmon and you're intended to go upstream while everyone else is going downstream. So, moving forward, you need to build your arsenal of new. What new things? New visions, new skill sets, new approaches, new knowledge. And once you've got those 4 things settled, when the new opportunities come your way, you'll be ready to grab them. So what do you do now? Sitting where you are is your first advantage. It is time to look at what you are doing and then consider what can you do that is different? What can you do that will draw attention towards your skills? What can you add to your current practice skills? And then consider that because you have your own skill sets, who do you need to work with where you can bring your skill sets together and give even better service to the people in your industry. So this is a little bit of navel gazing. I hope you've all used the last 6 weeks productively. I know that even I have gone through a couple of weeks where I was wondering how I'm going to be looking into the future. But you must always come back to recognizing what you have to share with the market. And it starts with what are your own skill sets first. Sharpen what you already know. If you're a good researcher, improve your research skills. You know that things are online. You may be able to use your research skills and be an asset to whichever company you're working for. Right now, there may be an argument that you want to develop your research skills and develop subject matter expertise, because there's going to be a deep need for certain industries to be advised and very quickly as well, not giving you much time to go and research and build your knowledge. For others, you may have been doing conveyancing all this time, but now see that perhaps litigation holds some future opportunities and you want to develop new practice areas. Be brave and consider it. Adaptation to technology is today a no-brainer. When 2020 started, I never imagined the level of technological abilities that I would need to develop in such a short period of time. And in order for you to be an effective lawyer going forward, it is really important to invest in client knowledge. You may need to deep dive into industries like construction and shipping and intellectual property require people who have a thorough knowledge of not just the legal aspects of the industry, but also the commercial aspects. And once you've got this down, you must know how to market yourself. Granted, the legal profession constrains advertising, but there are many legitimate ways of putting yourself out there and being known for your skill set. And you can use things like LinkedIn to write blogs and to also give talks in order to demonstrate what you know about the industry that you have a passion for. Once you know your skill sets, you will instinctively also know what your personal superpowers are. See, knowledge is just one part of the picture. At the end of the day, you must be able to use that knowledge effectively. Think about your personal contacts. They're a great resource for opportunities. If you have got good language skills, consider how you can open up your markets. For example, the Belt and Road continues to be a fabulous place for opportunities. If you speak Mandarin well or any of the Chinese dialects, that would be a great place to channel some of your energies and develop markets there. In fact, just yesterday, I saw that 2 Vietnamese-speaking lawyers from the US were invited to come and put in an application. So there are jobs even being offered now, even though everyone's talking about furloughing and job cuts. Blue ocean thinking is something that some people naturally have. You can look out into a blue ocean and see opportunities that others can't. And this is something that, especially those of you who are interested in the online world, which is very new to most people, if you can see opportunities there, that will be a great place to develop your skills and bring advice to your clients as well. Green ocean thinking is for those who are giving advice to startups or people who are just having fledgling industries. They too require advisors. And if you're with those companies from the beginning, you can establish lifelong relationships with them as they go from strength to strength and face the current stresses, but also to set themselves up for the future opportunities ahead. Now, if you're extra lucky and you have a family business that perhaps has not had your attention yet, this might be the time to see whether this superpower will provide some opportunities for you. Consider your own personality and where that personality will be able to be used in the market, whether it is in management or whether it is in galvanizing people, whether it's in conflict coaching. Think about your skill set as your superpowers, because what comes easy to you will be easy to be translated into opportunity. As I said, technology is a no-brainer. For some people, you're extra lucky, you adapt to technology very easily. And if this is your superpower, please take advantage of it. Now, this is something I'd like to just share with everyone who is looking at their practice, trying to reframe what they might be wanting to do going forward. This is a tip for litigators who may be considering mediation. This is a question that has been posed to me in the last few weeks, because people are recognizing that it may not be just a smooth sailing approach, even for the dispute resolution industry. First, recognize that cash flow is going to be key post-COVID. Clients will be shopping, and you need to be different. Now, you don't need to be a mediator to be a mediation advocate. What you need to understand is that mediation advocacy is valuable, and you must be brave enough to define your value accordingly. There may be a temptation to work cheap, but if it's not sustainable, it cannot hold you in the long run. A question that has been asked in the past, and this is what we have shared when we speak to people who do mediation advocacy at the Malaysian Mediation Center, is that there are two ways of creating your value as a mediation advocate. The first one is to agree on fees. And this is the same fee will be charged to the client whether you resolve the matter at mediation or if you eventually have to go for litigation. The other one is where you give the sweet spot to your clients to say that if the matter is resolved at mediation, it will be pegged at between 40 to 70% of your firm's typical litigation fee. This is an incentive for your client to consider your services because you're bringing a swift, cost-effective solution to their knowledge. And for those who are considering mediation, please remember that preparation is key. What you want is to increase your return on investment. So don't waste time. Identify the issues early, get your evidence organized, prepare your position papers in a way that can be converted to a statement of claim or a defense should mediation not yield the solution that your client is looking for. Now, that was the law. This is also a good time to consider whether your passions remain in being in the law. As Selva pointed out, you've got to decide whether this is a job or a career. If your other passions lie beyond the law, this would be an excellent time to consider what you want to do about it. As I said, I think that this is a time for those with technological superpowers to be able to explore doing things online. We know that the creative economy is under pressure as well, but I put here writing because I think there are lawyers who have got such a great flair for writing. You should consider doing a blog to either support your current practice or even to consider doing writing for side income. Public speaking is another thing that one can develop. It will improve your ability to convey your messages. Teaching remains something that they say is recession-proof. The future will see whether that is correct, because I know that teachers have been grappling with changing to online platforms as well, and to be able to convey their lessons as well. Culinary pursuits, there are many of you who dream of opening up F&B. You know, the best time to open up an F&B outlet, but certainly if you are creative, you can use you can have culinary pursuits and make some side income as well. For those, as Sheena pointed out, are inclined to serve your fellow man, social work might open up some opportunities, and we know that there are going to be many people who are going to need support in the days, months, and possibly years to come. And if all of this appears to be too overwhelming, those of you who are nimble enough to have this opportunity, you can consider spending this time having your further education, committing time to developing more saleable skills for the years to come. So there are many options to reflect upon. It is for you to look into your own treasure box and create opportunities for yourself. Now, I wanted to touch on something that I've seen in the past recessions, especially where there are mixed practices. The reality is that there are going to be tensions going forward. One department is likely to do better than another department. This is the time to leverage on each other's skills and see how you can survive the current crisis together. The interesting thing about a mixed practice is that you know why you went into business together. And the time is now to solder on and soldier on to see how you can continue to galvanize clients and to place their trust in you. The feature of being a multi-hatted lawyer is one that is a reality. I am a litigator, an arbitrator, adjudicator, as well as a mediator. These are natural hats that I have picked up along the way in my career. These are things that you might want to consider for yourselves as well. And what this all means is that we have to commit to lifelong learning. Skill awareness is one thing, skill development is the commitment. At the end of the day, one of the other options to consider and reflect upon is to help clients who are in distress find ways of finding solutions which do not necessarily need to lead to litigation. Conflict coaching would require lawyers to go into their clients' operations and try and find out what strategies can be used to help them avert, avoid, or deal with crises. I foresee that there may be a need for new external, internal advisors. This is where companies who do not have internal in-house counsel can rely on external counsel. Perhaps retainer fees, which has long ebbed away, will make a comeback as creative lawyers come up with packages that companies feel will help them resolve the issues that are going to be looming ahead. So there are many options ahead of us, but right now one may feel under siege. And what we are encouraging you is that if you're in a cocoon, you must consider that this is the time to metamorphosize. And I'd like to share something shortly before I end. And this is a sharing from Ms. Tan Swee In. She's a senior lawyer and one of our top female arbitrators in Malaysia. She has generously shared with me that she's looking at her fourth recession. She started her career in the 1980s in a recession, and she shared that how you emerge is going to be up to you. You must remember this, you will emerge, but you must be prepared to adapt and change. You can't afford to wallow and compare. You must understand that in the last few recessions, we never had these opportunities to interact. Most of us had to figure out everything on their own. And as Kiran and Sheena and Sel and Lisa have said, AWL and all of us are here to share our experiences. Most of us have gone through recessions. There is a scarier one ahead of us. The main thing is that we all need to recognize that we own our own destiny. And we need to consider it's not so much what others can do for us, but what we can do for others, which will then open up opportunities for us to work together and step forward into the future. As I close, I want to leave you with this thought. It is important for us to decide and prepare of our own personal stories of how we are going to survive first and then thrive going forward.
Shanti.
Get ready to bounce. And before I end, just 4 parting notes. It is important that we center ourselves. None of this is any of our faults. If you're an employee potentially facing a job cut or termination or a salary adjustment, it's not your fault. If you're an employer having to consider these drastic measures for business survival, it's not your fault. One needs to accept that we all need to embrace new skills. It is very important that we get paid for the work that we do. Be philosophical about this crisis, and if you forget or recede back into feeling a bit overwhelmed, use these thoughts on repeat. I just want to quickly share my list of new skills that I developed the last 2 months. This is the first time I'm presenting on webinar in these last 2 months. I've never done it before. First time I'm using Zoom, GoToWebinar, WebEx, Google Hangouts, and I've even created an online mediation platform because that's the future. Never even thought I was going to be doing this when I started a brand new decade in 2020. I also have learned how to make s'mores with marshmallows, so I'm a rock star to my children. And 5 days ago, I learned how to use 3D shapes and animate them on slides. I hope you enjoyed those. I never even knew those existed. The best is yet to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shanti. That optimism was a wonderful way to end our session. I, for one, am definitely working on very many new skills. First time webinar using Zoom. I've gone on Google Hangouts. It's been a really interesting experience. Shanti, there was a question from the survey. If you could maybe help us answer that one. The question was, I have a traditional conveyancing and litigation practice. What can I do to be relevant to my clients during this time?
So my short answer would be, first find out what your clients need right now and adapt accordingly. If your clients have lots of debts to be collected, I'll use a simple example. The typical default would be to set up plenty of litigation going to court. The question you have to ask yourself is, at the end of it, will your client get any cash flow? Will those processes unlock cash flow for your client? And then start to think creatively. Is there a place for negotiations with those debtors? Remember, this is a global crisis. It is not a belligerent debtor not wanting to pay. Is there a place for negotiation or mediation or an amicable resolution process, which will be faster, cheaper, and most importantly, effective for your client? And that would be how you can reframe a traditional practice going forward. In terms of conveyancing, I know that my conveyancing friends, many who are our peers, are worried about the future, but they also know that the market is likely to see some surge in sales, whether by force or because people are doing fire sales. Conveyancing, I'm not really familiar with what are the opportunities there. It's time for you to think about how you can look at that particular industry or your practice area and find some solutions going forward.
Thank you very much for those tips. Basically, we all need to start thinking out of the box. We always maintained that we could rather have face-to-face meetings with our clients. We've changed. We've gone into Google Hangouts. We talk to them online anytime we need to. Yep, practice is definitely changing. So that brings us to the end of our session. I do hope that you all had some good takeaways that you all can now put into practice. I think Shanti really did give us a lot of positive feedback that at least makes us go off smiling today. Unfortunately, it is a sobering topic. So Lisa and Sal, thank you very much for all of that information that is empowering to us though, and that will allow us to move also forward. Thank you very much, everybody.